The Russians and Prussians have come together to defeat the American-British alliance. Will they be strong enough to do it on this rolling hill map? We'll have to find out in today's Victoria Total War battle. That's basically what I just call the mod because it's set in the Victorian era, but it is the scramble for the East. If you want to go ahead and play this yourself, I'll leave a link down below in the description to both their Discord and the mod, so you can download both. You're going to have to use ModDB, but it's really simple as the Russian artillery gets underway, bombarding their opponent's positions. So this is, I think, the first time we're taking a proper look at the Russians in this mod, and may I say they do look glorious in their green coats. I love the flags in Shogun as well. They do look very nice. And then obviously we have some of these Russian Jaegers as well, so more skirmisher infantry looking very nice. And I think we'll have some guard infantry as well, some grenadiers over on this right hand side, the Russian grenadiers ready to get stuck in. We've already seen the majority of the Prussian and British formation. Oh my god, the British just love bringing this rocket artillery, and to be honest, I love to see it as the shots come ranging in and just bombarding the Prussian front line as they slowly try to advance. And at the moment, the battle itself, I know we're kind of getting flung right into it, not a lot of prep time, but all the players are diving towards these shrines in the middle of the map, and that's why these things are so goddamn awesome. You know, these actually encourage players to be aggressive, move forward and try and secure these positions because they provide such good bonuses. Not such good bonuses that if you get them you're just going to straight up win, but they give you a nice advantage in that. So this one which the British are currently controlling is going to be the increase to morale. In the center we have one that increases stamina, which is really important in this mod. And then on the far left flank you do have the increased reload rate and missile, I guess, damage for all units, which again is pretty goddamn awesome. In the center over on this side of things you do have two American front lines with their foot infantry as well as their foot rifles, which are quickly double timing forward. On the right hand side as well, guarding this pretty awesome river as well, you have the other American line. It seems like some of their cannons have already been taken out by the Russian front line. Oh yeah, this was something as well that they did mention, that obviously this mod is having a little bit of an issue right here in the replay with some of the unit bodies. That's just, you know, the amount of freedom has exploded out of these American bodies and into the Russian line. So yeah, this is going to be one hell of an engagement. I mean, just look at that. That's just absolutely awesome. And if you guys are enjoying these modded battles, then be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. It really helps out the channel. It lets me know that you want to see more of them, especially ones that are this large scale. I mean, what's not to love right here? This mod is awesome. More Victorian style Total War and the huge scales. Let's see if we can break 300 likes for this battle. I know it's not exactly my usual forte, but I really enjoy doing it. And if you guys, you know, do want to see more, make sure to let me know in the comments. So it seems like we do have the Americans advancing forward in the center with two units of their foot rifles, which are going to close in on top of this hill ridge and I guess start duking it out with some of the Prussian line. We're going to get the first volley. I think they are reforming. I really like the backpacks as well on these infantrymen. They look awesome. Of course, the artillery is bombarding here when I'm not looking. There you go. Finally a volley off. The Prussians, I think, actually got the first shot off over on this right-hand side. You can obviously tell as well that the musket range is very quite long in this mod because it's set in the later 1800s rather than the Napoleonic, which was a lot earlier. The weaponry is a lot stronger, obviously. I think a lot of, or at least a lot of the later tier units are using like breech-lock rifles. God, the British rocket artillery is just madness. It really is. So yeah, the weaponry is like a lot more improved. Obviously, you've had pretty much the entire century to, you know, develop weapons through basically constant fighting throughout this period. So yeah, weaponry has got a lot better. So as we're seeing, the main engagement right now is between the British, some American soldiers, and the Prussian center and right-hand side. The Russians haven't quite got stuck in yet. It does seem as well that the Americans have managed to secure this morale boost right here, or the British have managed to secure this morale boost shrine, and they're slowly moving in and trying to take this increased stamina, which, as I said, is really important because units do get tired. I say that though, but this rocket artillery has just devastated this Prussian line. It's really is just doing some insane damage. I'm not sure if it needs a nerf or something, but right now it is I mean, it fires very quickly. I feel like, you know, it should fire this, it should do this much damage, but just fire a lot slower and maybe be a bit more inaccurate, because that's like the goddamn 4th of July right there. It really is. I made that joke like every time this rocket battery is used in a battle, but seriously, like, it was literally devastated 3 units of full Prussian line. It seems very, very OP. As well as that, you can see that the American rifles are depicting these infantry from Prussia pretty nicely. There's a lot of casualties. This Prussian infantry has actually had to fall back a little bit as well, as they are taking a hefty amount of damage. And I think just these American skirmishers are in such a good position, just peeking over the hill, and they have very, very easy targets as well. So the Americans are, in a very nice position on top of this ridge that they can use to their advantage. I don't think these rifles are shooting. No, they're not. And here we go. We finally got a big cavalry engagement on the right-hand side between the Russian and American cavalry. Both sides going at it right now, and now the Russians are also, the Americans even, are now committing a Montgomery Guard unit, so a very elite unit of rifles is being thrown into this battle to help win the cavalry engagement. However, it seems like the Russian cavalry is coming out on top, even with the reinforcements. However, the gunners will be able to start turning the tide right now, I imagine, and pick these guys down. We also have some Russian line finally engaging now against the American front line. They're going to be receiving a volley, a pretty long-range volley. It also does seem the Russians are mainly focused on this cavalry fight, trying to take down that American horse. Winning the cavalry engagement is very important in this mod because it allows you to kind of outmaneuver your opponents, obviously, and also go and kill their artillery, because as the artillery is such long range, you can see there's a lot of batteries back here that are just really undefended. So if one side can come out on top, then they're going to be very, very, they're going to have the advantage when it comes to killing this artillery. And that's kind of why this Russian player has left 3 units of his guards in reserve back here to protect his artillery piece, which is obviously set up in a very, very nice position right here. Some 12-pounders. And he's also got another 12-pounder, which is a bit more advanced on this ridge as well. Some of these cannons are having a hard time. These 9-pounders, but I guess they can just shoot, a little bit more elevated, I guess. You even have multiple lines right here, which is so awesome to see, man. I love Shogun 2. It's just such a great game, and it looks so good as well. So they're going to be helping out their allies. Maybe shooting a few men in the back, hopefully not too many. But once again, you can see this formation set up very nicely against the American line. You can see that hill just get completely covered in missile fire. We do see a pretty massive British cavalry charge here, and that's completely repelled the Prussian horse on this right-hand side. Oh, it's because the Americans are here as well, supporting their British allies, and yeah, you can see that they completely dominated this left-hand side, and they could quite easily start to make a move into the Prussian center if they wanted to, if I'm honest. Obviously, you have some Prussian line forming square here to give some sort of protection. Unfortunately, they're not shooting for whatever reason. They should be unloading shots into this cavalry, but for some reason they're, I guess, they're stationary. Again, some more Prussian line going up against the British rifles. We even have a little infantry charge, or sorry, a cavalry charge in the center. The British were lucky enough, though, to form up into a square. And I guess this is where a lot of the Prussian cavalry is. It's trying to engage and disrupt the British line. For the most part, they're going to be getting caught by more of the National Lancers from America, who very, very quickly form up. And I guess they're going to continue to pursue the Prussian cavalry as it caused havoc in the battle line. I mean, this is mainly acting as disruption, but oh no, the British artillery came very close. I imagine to try and close the distance, maybe some grape shots. They are going to get absolutely smashed by the Prussian cavalry as it comes in, and that should send a lot of these horses flying. Oh no, because they're still limbered, so the horses don't run away, which is very lucky. But this is a daring move by the Prussians. They're obviously sending their cavalry to certain death, but if they can take out a British artillery piece, that'd be absolutely huge, because I imagine these British artillery have like closed the distance here with some 6-pounder field cannons, just to try their best. And the British cavalry is taking full advantage of that, diving in to the Prussian line and engaging it and doing a very deadly job, killing a ton of Prussian infantry and moving on to the next opponents. How's the other flank doing with the Russians? The Russians and the Prussians have both met up, and they've managed to secure this archery dojo, which should, rightfully be named like a musket dojo or something. But this increases reload rate, replenishes ammunition, and also I believe does maybe a little bit more damage on the missile shots. So that's going to be huge. It's going to allow these Russians to continue shooting very, very deadly. And I love the way that they've set up their line here as well. That's just really, really cool. The way that they've got their rifles in front. And they're just, having a pretty brutal time with it as they continue to fight away against the Americans across the ways. I mean, the Americans are set up in a very nice position as well. And you can see maybe a few more calls being committed over to this fight as the smoke continues to rise. Yes, the Americans are committing 2 more divisions over to this right-hand side to help reinforce. And obviously they can use the hill as well to their advantage because they're elevated. They can set up here and kind of mirror what the Russians are doing on this flank to go ahead and allow them to get more evasive fire further on down the front of the battlefield. A lot of these Americans are already bloodied, so maybe some Russian artillery found their mark on this unit, causing a bit of damage. You can see, though, on this far right flank that the position is getting completely overrun by the British cavalry, killing all of this artillery and moving on. This is catastrophic for the Prussians right now. They've basically lost this entire flank. The British are dominating the center thanks to their rocket battery. And now the middle player is having to commit some more of his divisions over to this right-hand side to help reinforce. These corpses need to, quickly reinforce. Sorry, these corps need to quickly reinforce. It seems like they're getting over here as fast as they can, marching double time through the forest. Because maybe they can get some volleys off and just, try and minimize this cavalry threat. Because losing the cavalry is, not the end of the world, but it's definitely going to hurt. That's for sure. So you're going to see some of these Prussian lines quickly trying to get over here. And the last of the Prussian cavalry coming in as well, which might actually be able to turn the tides. Honestly, if they can just engage them, that'd be great. But once again, we have a huge cavalry charge here by the Americans this time coming in. And again, hitting more of a Prussian line. And I think that's just going to be enough to break this flank, which is definitely going to be very deadly when it comes to the rest of the battle, honestly. Losing this flank is going to really, really hurt, and it's going to be up to the Russians in the center to try do something to help out. They're also getting overwhelmed on this other flank as well by more cavalry, and now we're going to get a big melee engagement popping off in the center of the battlefield, or I guess on the flank of the battlefield. The Prussians in the center, though, actually have a very nice line pushed up, and it seems like they're going to try and challenge for this increased stamina and continue to push up their line. They're closing the distance, obviously trying to use that increased reload speed to their advantage. But the rolling hills of Japan is, proving hard to get their units actually in range, but it's also giving them a fair amount of protection. Oh, this poor unit of Bavarian Grenadiers as well, looking to try and charge in, is getting completely kited against the British line. The British have a position up here of colonial foot. They do manage to engage against the cavalry and get a pretty decent charge at it. So now they're going to be sitting ducks for the rest of the line infantry. They really are, they're going to be sitting right there. The rest of the Prussian line is still dealing. Wow, how are they still dealing with these United States cavalrymen? You can also see more of the United States cavalry finally getting caught in the woods against the Bavarian saber cavalry. This was a pretty important cavalry move, and I think this Prussian cavalry just needed to go over and support. I mean, the rest of the British cavalry is pulled back here. This Prussian cavalry really needs to get stuck in because they could definitely end up losing the rest of their 12-pounders. The Russians are committing their reserves, though, to this left flank. I imagine going to be looking for a big push. The Russians also have their cavalry in reserve, so it's going to be interesting to see how this does, evolve. But considering they have some cavalry, which is fresh and ready to get committed, they could quite easily overwhelm this flank without too much issues. The Americans have stuck down stakes, though, with their rifles. which is obviously going to be providing them some good protection from the front at least. Oh, as that artillery shot just comes flying in. Yeah, the artillery is ranged in, but them spikes proving it, as an iron wall against even the artillery. Getting caught up there in them shots. So for the most part, the fighting has, basically stalemated as both sides tried to push in. But as we saw, because the Russians have this reinforcement dojo right here, the archery dojo, that's going to be hugely benefiting them. Or is it this one? It's this one. That's going to be, allowing them to win in situations like this. We do actually have some 2 units of Lion being retreated back as well to try and help out in this cavalry fight, which is so important. They're going to be able to get a volley off here, or they're going to kill a lot of their own friendly units. I'm not really sure how effective friendly fire is in this. But it seems like with that volley and the cavalry charge, it's going to be enough to break that American cavalry finally. The British still have 2 horses regiments back there, but for the most part, I think the Europeans and the Americans have now been pretty beaten back. There's also a 3 artillery batteries here as well getting set up, which has definitely closed the distance and will allow them to very effectively pick away at the hill in front of them if they can set this artillery up, because these are some heavy 12-pounder howitzers, which will be able to quite effectively go in. But we do have the Russian artillery trying to take out as many cannon pieces as possible. I definitely love as well, the mod had said in the last video we did on this, that the combat itself, a lot of the units that were being used in the last replay were mainly like breech rifles, so the combat was a lot faster. But I'm really enjoying the pace of this battle. There's a lot of heavy lines hitting each other. There's a lot of time for outmaneuvering your opponent and moving around the battlefield. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the overall pace of this battle for sure, especially in a big one like this with a 3 versus 3. It just allows, I think like the longer the battles, the better really for a Napoleonic style engagement. And here we go, the Americans are really trying to close the distance. They're not even charging in their rifles, no. They're just getting them extremely close, almost within touching distance, definitely within throwing distance. These crazy rifles, they did a lot of damage, and the Prussians are immediately going to charge against their opponents. I mean, obviously the smarter decision right here is to charge, and that's exactly what they did. You can wipe out an entire regiment of foot riflemen, whilst the rest of your units do continue to fight. But I mean, again, these are very depleted units right here. I can't imagine they would be faring too well against the American line. I say that though, they actually got relatively similar numbers. The British though are coming in as the flank has basically fully collapsed now. I think there's 1 regiment of Prussian line in the forest set up, and that's going to be able to hold for a fair amount of time. But they are outnumbered, and it's obviously only a matter of time. There's 3 regiments around here surrounding 1 Bavarian line, so yeah, they're going to break fairly quickly. We do have more in the center though coming over. I think these regiments are the ones that were fighting originally in the center here, being pushed over to help out their, their right flank. Russians again are now finally committing their cavalry, but they're running right into spikes. I mean, I guess it paid dividends because they broke through. So the way that spikes work in Shogun 2 is that they're kind of like, they do a finite amount of damage. So they'll do the damage and then they'll break, meaning if you have enough cavalry, you can just bulldoze your way through. They're not like this, impenetrable brick wall that just kills everything, like a pike line or something in Rome Total War. They'll do some damage, they'll kill a couple horses, and then they'll disappear. So that does mean that you can technically brute force your way through, and that's exactly what the Russians have done. And they've committed 3 whole units of guard infantry over to the American right flank. And that's going to be, that's going to be very, I guess the Russians have needed it. They decided that they had to commit their men. It's kind of now or never. If they don't commit their men now and try and make a break, that that other Prussian flank is dwindling, and they will be enveloped sooner rather than later. So I think it's a smart move to try and make some big push, and it has paid off pretty well for them. They're managing to wrap up this American flank. The Americans have set up another counter line here. They are shooting multiple lines, but the Russians, the endless wave of Russians is going to continue to come in and charge against the battle line. It's going to have the Americans on the run. A very effective charge. I mean, this is what is kind of good. You want these big charges, but the American cannon, the 12-pounders have set up with canister shots shooting into the backs of these Russians who endlessly charge, which is going to be very effective. If you take a look at the map, you can really see that the British line as well is kind of finishing up that Prussian flank. Well, the balance of power is in favour, slightly in favour of the Russians as they get a cavalry charge here from the artillery. Are they going to be able to get one more shot off? No, they're not. The cavalry is going to be able to overrun the rest of these cannons probably. And now more and more of the Russians are just charging. I mean, they're going to be exhausted, but they are just charging further forward. You can see right here as well, the Prussians are trying their best to reassemble, and I guess they are making pretty good progress with the help of the Russians. They're clearing out the rest of these positions quite nicely. Yeah, now the center as well has come to reinforce this flank, and I guess...
Damned lily-livered cowards! Your men are right,
I guess with the help of the center, the Prussians are able to kind of basically defeat the British. I'm not really sure what happened to the cavalry. Oh yeah, you can see the three regiments of horse right here. Yeah, with the reinforcements of the central Prussians, they're able to probably put these British on the run. Especially right here as well, and they're about to lose another cannon, so I can definitely see what the balance of power is telling, because the Russians are just doing such a great job and basically completely routing the Americans with that one crucial offensive charge. Yeah, they literally broke the entire American right flank and in the center as well. They were just so aggressive, and I guess the Americans did not have the firepower to really duke it out with them. And yeah, now the Russians are completely overrunning this flank. In the center as well, they've also engaged a regiment of American soldiers, just foot infantry here. And just the sheer weight of numbers is definitely proving pretty devastating. However, obviously, as you can see, with the Prussians committing so much over to this British theatre, they're going to be losing against the Americans here, being outmaneuvered and enveloped. So the Americans are still looking to try and do as much damage as possible to this Prussian line before committing. They're going to need to, because soon enough, they're going to have the entire Russian Fifth Army at their backs. So they need to try their best to clear this up. But again, the Prussians are having a pretty good success here, finishing off what remains of the British cavalry. Which is going to take a volley. Oh, that cavalry is standing there, taking a pretty brutal frontal volley there. The General Staff, the General of Britain, is just like, yeah, I'll take them shots, as he quickly retreats back. But yeah, the Grenadiers are going to get overrun. The rest of the Prussian line coming in. We do have a cavalry charge here, only like 6 or 7 horses, so I can't imagine they're going to be that effective, as many of them do go down, but they're going to try their best. And the Prussians aren't even forming square. Well, that was a brutal charge there, though, into their backs. Prussians aren't even going to bother to form a square, though. They're just going to look to try and take these guys out as best as they can as the rest of the Prussian line comes around. They even have some cannons still up, right? Yeah, they have 2 cannons there, and the Russians have some cannons as well. But as you can see, the rest of the Russian line is just reforming now, taking more of these dojos, and then they're going to form up and get ready to fight what remains of the American line. But it's looking like the Prussians and the Russians are going to take this one, as they do commit more infantry here, just charging in to finish what remains of their line. It's basically just cavalry now, and then that's going to be the British completely broken. They still have these artillery batteries. Oh, this is awesome as well. Look at this. I'm not sure if this is available to all infantry, but this is really cool. It's like trenches. That's awesome. I mean, I imagine they should be facing the other way, right? You should have the mound. But maybe not. Maybe this is how you would set it. Yeah, I guess this is how you would set it up, right? Because then it means the attackers have to climb up and then come down, whereas you can just shoot through these gaps. This is awesome. This is really cool. More stuff like this would be dope. You know, more like trenches and defensive formations. It seems like the rocket artillery are out of ammunition now, and they're charging forward. But my God, did they get a lot of damage off in these battles. I'm so surprised as well that the attackers have done so well, considering that Prussian flank got so smashed in. The Americans are making their last stand now. The bounty power is looking very bad for them. And oh my god, there's even artillery coming in as well. Yeah, they're really going to be no match. And you even have some Russians who have managed to close the distance here as well against the American line. I think the British general has now gone down to the rest of the Prussians. And that is going to be the battle right there, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can just quite soundly triple speed or probably just skip to the end now as the Americans make their stand. Yeah, there you go. Everything is breaking. The Americans are fully gone, and now it's just simply that British rocket artillery that is very soon to be cut down. So that was an epic battle. I love these large-scale engagements. I love the scramble for the East one. It's very cool, and I can't wait for a campaign to get developed, which is currently in progress as well. So that's pretty exciting. We'll hopefully see that over the coming months, and you know, it'll be like a prologue campaign that will slowly get added to. So I'm interested to see. Hopefully we can see the amount of kills that rocket artillery got, because it must be in the hundreds, quite easily in the hundreds, I would say, as it managed to devastate the Prussian right flank. But I guess it is probably very expensive, so that's kind of why it did manage to do as well as it did. So I'm not sure who we're looking at. So I think we're looking at the Russians and the Prussians. Yeah, so the Prussian cavalry getting 200 kills. Is that all we can see? We can see another Prussian player, and I guess the Russians as well. Yeah, the Russians, 300 kills on their unit. Oh, it was like there? This is like weird. There we go. So yeah, the British artillery getting 200 kills, 190, and 185, and 166. So pretty deadly when, you know, they get like 600 kills plus, and there's only 2,500 men per side. You know, that's very nice indeed. So hopefully you guys enjoy this battle. If you did, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.